Most people think of dua as a verbal request sent into the void. But what if the real dua is actually work? What if the asking is found in the meticulous planning, the scientific research, and the social striving? Today we're looking at dua and dhikr through a rationalist lens. We're moving away from the idea of God as my magical vending machine and toward a system where remembrance means application. If you've been repeating words but seeing no results, it's time to stop reciting the name of the medicine and start swallowing the tablet. Let's dive into the Quranic blueprint for active, informed living. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are opening up a file that honestly might make some people a little uncomfortable at first glance. We're tackling two concepts that are basically the bread and butter of the Quranic narrative, dua and dhikr. But here's the mission for today. We are stripping away the mood lighting. We are taking away the incense, the beads, and the mystical vibes that usually surround these words.
It's a necessary demolition job, really. It has to be done.
It does. We aren't looking at this from a ritualistic perspective. We are looking at it quite literally as a technical manual for governance and success. We want to see if these ancient concepts hold water when you apply a strict rationalist framework to them.
Which is a fascinating shift, and for the learner tuning in, especially if you're used to hearing dua and thinking prayer or dhikr and thinking meditation, this is going to feel like a cold shower, but in a good way.
Right, a clarifying shock to the system.
Exactly. The source material we're working with today really challenges that comfort zone. It's asking us to look at faith not as a suspension of reality, but as a hyper-engagement with reality.
Hyper-engagement. I love that phrase. It's the key right there, isn't it? Because the stereotype, and let's be real, we've all fallen into this, is that dua, or supplication, is about asking for the impossible. It's about asking for the laws of physics to politely step aside because we asked nicely. Please let my bank account fill up without me getting a job, or please let me pass this exam without studying.
Which is a lovely, comforting thought. It appeals to the child in all of us that wants the easy way out.
Of course.
But it's not what the text supports when you actually view it through this rationalist lens we're using today. The core thesis here, and it's a big one, is that dua isn't about breaking the laws of physics or the laws of cause and effect.
Okay.
It is about aligning yourself with those laws, what the Quran calls Sunnat Allah, or the immutable laws of God, to achieve a specific result.
So we're moving from magical thinking, hoping a rabbit pops out of a hat, to strategic protocol.
Exactly. It's about engineering your reality based on the design specs provided by the creator. It's work, it's strategy, it's intellect.
I want to jump straight into the deep end here because there was an analogy in the research notes that made me laugh out loud, but it's also just painfully accurate. It's called the paracetamol analogy.
It's a brilliant image. It cuts right through the noise of centuries of cultural baggage and tradition.
It really does. So for everyone listening, picture this scenario. You have a splitting headache, the kind that blinds you. You can't focus. You can't work. You are in genuine pain.
We've all been there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And sitting right there on the table in front of you is a bottle of paracetamol. The solution is literally within arm's reach.
The solution is right there. It's chemically designed to solve your specific problem. The science exists. The tool has been created.
Right. But instead of opening the bottle, taking out a tablet, and swallowing it with water, you sit there, you close your eyes, you start rocking back and forth, and you just chant, paracetamol, 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 over and over again.
Maybe with a lot of emotion.
Right. Maybe you do it melodically. Maybe you do it with tears in your eyes. Oh, paracetamol, my savior, please cure me of this ailment.
And the million-dollar question, does the headache go away?
No, of course not. You just have a headache, and now you probably have a dry throat from all the chanting. Maybe you feel a little placebo effect for 5 minutes, but the chemical imbalance causing the pain hasn't been touched.
Precisely. And the source material uses this to deconstruct how we traditionally approach dhikr and dua. In this analogy, the chanting represents that traditional, purely verbal approach.
Just the words.
Just the words. We repeat the names of God, or we repeat our requests for success or victory, thinking that the sonic vibration of the word is the cure. We think the word medicine is the medicine.
But the cure isn't in the word medicine.
No, the cure is in the chemical interaction. You have to actually swallow the tablet. And in this metaphor, swallowing the tablet equals engaging the intellect, creating a plan, and physically acting upon that plan.
So the relief,
the result,
the pain relief, or in our case, provision, victory, societal stability, comes from the biological interaction of the medicine with the body, not the sound, the substance.
That's a heavy realization. Because applying that to real life, You can chant success, 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 or guide me, but if you aren't actually taking the steps, swallowing the tablet, then nothing happens. You're just making noise. It's inert. It's just sound waves. The rationalist perspective argues that God has established a system of cause and effect. If you want the effect, the cure, you must initiate the cause.
And the cause isn't the chanting.
The verbal repetition is meaningless without the physical mechanism. It's like standing in front of a locked door and shouting, key, 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 instead of actually finding the key, putting it in the lock, and turning it.
Okay, so if chanting is just identifying the medicine, but not taking it, we need to completely redefine what taking the medicine looks like in a spiritual or societal context.
You do.
This leads us to a complete overhaul of the definition of dua. If it's not just a wish list I send up to the sky, what is it?
The source material redefines dua as purposeful striving and planning. It shifts the definition from a passive request to an active pursuit. It's not a suspension of natural laws. It is the ultimate reliance on them.
Active deen. That was the term in the notes.
Oh.
But let's unpack the mechanism here, because this sounds like hard work. It sounds like responsibility. There's a specific verse that the source material highlights as the absolute linchpin for this argument. Surah Arad, verse 13.11.
Yes. This is the verse that effectively kills the magic wand theory. The verse states, indeed, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is in themselves.
We've heard this before, but break it down technically. What does change what is in themselves actually mean in this context? Because usually people interpret that as, I need to feel more pious, or I need to have better intentions.
And that's a very limited, very passive view. Scientifically, this verse is the law of cause and effect enshrined in Scripture. It's telling us that divine intervention is not arbitrary, it's not random, it is contingent on human initiative.
It's conditional.
It's entirely conditional.
Yeah.
To use the phrasing from our notes, which I think is perfect for the modern ear and for our tech-savvy listeners, God doesn't change a people until they change their own internal operating system.
Their internal operating system. That's such a coding way to look at it, but it fits perfectly.
It fits perfectly, doesn't it? If your OS is buggy, if your character is flawed, your knowledge is outdated, your societal structures are corrupt, your work ethic is non-existent, you cannot run high-level applications like prosperity or justice.
It just won't compute.
You can try to install the app, but it will crash every time. The dua isn't the request for the upgrade. The dua is the coding work you do to patch the system. It's the debugging.
So let's use a real-world example to ground this. Let's say I'm making a dua for financial prosperity for my community. The traditional way is, oh Lord, please give us wealth. And then we, check the mailbox every day waiting for a check from an unknown relative.
Right. That's the chanting paracetamol approach. It's passive. It assumes God is going to bypass the entire global economy just to help you specifically.
Which is pretty arrogant when you think about it,
Uh,
and self-centered.
Extremely. Now, the rationalist approach, the swallowing the tablet approach, starts with the desire for prosperity. You have the intent. But then it asks, how does the universe God's system generate prosperity? What are the physics of wealth?
Well, it generates it through value, right? Exchange of goods, services, solving problems. It's about productivity and innovation.
Exactly. It generates it through economic value, through innovation, through fair trade, through diligent labor, through education. So if your dua is for wealth, your action, your swallowing of the tablet, is that you study economic principles, you build schools, you foster innovation, you ensure your transactions are just and contracts are honored.
You wake up early and do the work.
That work is the prayer. You are physically enacting the dua. You are aligning your community with the universal laws of prosperity.
That blows my mind a little bit because it makes the concept of unanswered prayers basically impossible in a way. If you didn't do the work, you didn't actually pray. You just hoped.
Exactly. Hope is passive. Dua is active. You can't claim the prayer wasn't answered if you never actually submitted the application. The application is the striving. You can't blame the university for rejecting you if you never filled out the form.
And this changes how we view guidance, too. This is a huge one. Look at the most repeated verse in the Quran, from Surah Al-Fatiha. Guide us to the straight path. We say this 17 times a day if we're performing the 5 daily prayers.
But what are we asking for? What does that even mean in a practical sense? In the traditional view, we're often just asking to be good people in some vague, abstract way.
Help me not mess up today.
Basically. But in this context, we aren't asking for a miracle to transport us to the finish line. We are asking for operational intel.
Operational intel. I like that. It sounds strategic, like something from a mission briefing.
Think about it. Guide us to the straight path. If you are an engineer trying to build a bridge, you aren't asking for the bridge to magically appear. You are asking for the correct load-bearing calculation.
The correct physics.
If you're a navigator, you're not asking for the mountain to move out of your way. You are asking for the best navigational route through the mountain pass. The straight path isn't a magic carpet that flies you over the obstacles. It's the correct methodology to solve a real-world problem.
So it's like asking for the data. Give me the data I need to make the right decision. Show me the most efficient route.
Yes. Show me the variables I'm missing. Show me the flaw in my logic.
Yeah.
Give me the wisdom to see the consequences of my choices. And then this is the kicker, you have to walk the path.
Right. The data is useless if you don't use it.
You have to execute the algorithm. It is a request for clarity and wisdom to implement the laws effectively. If your GPS gives you the route, but you refuse to turn the steering wheel, you can't blame the GPS for you being lost.
This really shifts the responsibility, doesn't it? It puts the burden of action squarely on the human being. There's no escaping it.
Which is exactly where the Quran places it. We are the Khalifa, the trustees. We are supposed to run the machine, not just stare at it and hope it runs itself. God built the car, gave you the manual, and filled the tank. You have to drive.
This brings us to the next section, which acts as a bridge between the personal and the collective. Because sometimes people think, okay, I'll work hard for money, I'll be rational in my career, but my spiritual life is separate. That's for my private moments.
Yeah.
But the sources talk about a holistic dua.
Right. You can't compartmentalize like that. The system is integrated. And there's this beautiful verse, 2.201, that is often used as a catch-all prayer. Our Lord, give us good in this world and good in the hereafter.
I hear that at every gathering.
Yeah.
It feels like the standard cover your bases prayer.
Yeah.
I want the Ferrari now and the mansion in paradise later.
It is often treated that way, like a cosmic shopping list. But let's analyze the good. What is good in this world, Hazana fi al-dunya? In a rationalist framework, it's not just having a nice car or a big house, because those things can exist in a corrupt, terrible society.
Sure, a dictator can have a nice car. That's not good.
Exactly. Good in this world is a just, prosperous society built on divine principles. It is a society where the water is clean, the courts are fair, the economy is stable, and the weak are protected. That's the operational definition of good.
That's the good. It's systemic good, not just personal comfort.
That is the good. And here is the logic puzzle. What is the good in the hereafter?
Usually we think of it as the reward, the prize you get for putting up with the bad stuff here, the ultimate retirement plan.
It is the reward, but in this framework, it's the natural consequence. It is the result. The source material argues that the good in the hereafter is the inevitable outcome of living that's just life in the here and now. You cannot separate them.
So it's not a prize for enduring a bad system.
It's the consequence of building a good one. You don't get the hereafter prize for being miserable and passive here. You get it as a result of the work you did to build the good in this world. It's a continuum.
So the dua, the statement, give us good, is actually a statement of intent. It's saying, I am committing to building a good society here, and I trust that the result of that will be safety in the next life.
Precisely. The act of striving for a righteous society is the dua. You are building the continuity between this life and the next. So, to summarize where we are so far, dua equals conscious planning plus maximum effort plus reliance on universal laws. No magic, just work aligned with truth.
Which is a perfect segue to the other half of our topic today. We've talked about dua, the asking, the striving. Now we have to talk about dua, the remembrance. Because if dua isn't just asking, dua definitely isn't just counting beads.
No, and this is where we have to do some serious demystifying. Usually when you say dhikr, people imagine a quiet room, maybe some incense, repeating a phrase 99 times, ideally a meditative trance.
Right. Mindfulness in the Western sense.
Yeah.
Zoning out to clear your head. Escaping the stress of the world.
But the Quranic definition of dhikr is almost the opposite of zoning out. It is systemic mindfulness. It is a state of hyper-awareness. It's not about escaping the world, it's about engaging with it more precisely.
Systemic mindfulness. Break that down for us. What does that mean on a Tuesday afternoon?
It means constant awareness of the standard operating procedure, which are the divine attributes required to run the world correctly. Let's take the attributes of God. We say God is Al-Alil, the just, Ar-Rahman, the merciful.
Okay, so we remember those names.
So what does it mean to remember them? Traditional dhikr is saying God is just 100 times and feeling good about it. Rationalist dhikr is Because I remember that God is just, I must be just in this contract I am signing right now.
Wow.
Because I remember God is merciful, I must act with compassion toward this employee I am managing. The remembrance is the direct trigger for the behavior.
So it's not just recalling the name, it's recalling the standard and applying it.
Exactly. It's the recall of the protocol. If you are a pilot, remembering the safety manual doesn't mean reciting it over the intercom to the passengers. It means flipping the correct switches when the light turns red. It means checking your altitude. It means making the correction. That action is the remembrance.
That makes the verse in Sunnat Allah 20.14 really interesting. Establish prayer for my remembrance.
Yes, establish prayer for my remembrance. In this rationalist twist, prayer, salat, isn't just the ritual motions, it is the establishment of the system of life. You build a system, a schedule, a community, a government that constantly reminds you of the laws.
You build reminders into the system itself.
You establish the structure so that you don't forget the mission. It's like setting up automated alerts on your computer. You build the infrastructure of remembrance. It's not just a mental note, it's a physical system.
And speaking of physical systems in society, this leads us to what the source notes call the social mandate. This is the part of the research that really struck me because it pits Salat directly against commerce.
This is from Surah Al-Jumu'ah, verses 62.911, and the context here is vital. It's the day of congregation. The call goes out.
The call to Salat, the call to prayer.
Right. Now, typically we think, okay, stop selling shoes, go pray, come back, sell shoes. A pause in the action.
A spiritual coffee break, a timeout from the real world.
But the analysis here suggests something much more profound. It's a conflict between two systems. Short-term profit, commerce entertainment, versus long-term systemic success, remembrance.
How so? That's a big claim.
The verse says, hasten to the remembrance of God and leave your commerce. The remembrance here, the salat, is defined as the active, collective implementation of divine commands. It's the community coming together to recalibrate their moral compass, to enforce justice, to ensure the weak are looked after.
So it's the town hall of the moral universe. It's where the community realigns itself with the principles.
Exactly, and the directive is, when the call comes to implement justice, to uphold the law, you must drop your personal profit-seeking. You must drop the commerce. Why? The verse says, that is for your own good if you use your knowledge.
For your own good. That sounds like an economic argument, not just a spiritual one.
It is a deeply economic argument. Think about it. Why is it for your own good to stop making money and go do this collective duty? Because a society that prioritizes profit over justice eventually collapses.
Right, corruption sets in, trust erodes.
If everyone is busy selling and no one is maintaining the market regulations or the ethics or the social safety net, the market itself will eventually fail. Prioritizing the system guarantees sustainable provision for everyone.
That is profound. You have to secure the platform before you can run the app. If the platform crashes because of corruption or injustice, nobody makes any money in the long run.
Precisely. You sacrifice the short-term transaction for the long-term viability of the society. And the verse continues, 62.10. And when the salat has been completed, disperse freely in the land and seek God's bounty. It's a sequence. First, secure the system, then go seek wealth within that secure, just system.
But the problem, and the source material points this out, is what happens when we don't do that. Verse 62.11 describes people rushing off.
Yet when they see some bargain or entertainment, they rush to it and leave you standing. This is the tragedy of short-termism. The bargain is the immediate gratification. It's the quick buck. It's the shiny object, the distraction.
And leaving you standing refers to the profit, but by extension, it also refers to the principle.
They leave the principle standing there, abandoned. They abandon the standard operating procedure to chase a discount. And the source notes use very strong language here. It mentions the consequences of neglect, which is khusran, a state of total loss.
And the categories of people who do this, the terms used are intense. They're not just mistaken.
No, they're functionally catastrophic. The source highlights that those who fail to rule by this divine law, who prioritize the bargain over the principle, are categorized as kafirun, rejectors of the system, zalimun, oppressors who cause systemic imbalance, and fasiqun, drifters.
I want to zoom in on drifters. That feels very modern, very relevant to our age of distraction.
Fasiqun. It's often translated as disobedient, but drifter captures the mechanical failure better. These are people who have drifted away from the manual. They're no longer anchored to the principles. They are wrongdoers, not just in a spiritual sense, but in a functional sense.
They're a liability.
They are trying to operate the machine while ignoring the safety protocols. They are dangerous to themselves and the collective because they are unpredictable. They drift wherever the profit is, wherever the entertainment is, regardless of the law or the long-term consequences.
So Dhikr in the social contest isn't about personal piety. It's about collective survival. It's about not letting the society drift into chaos because we were too busy shopping.
Correct. It is the anchor that holds the ship of state steady in the storm of human greed.
Okay, so we've covered the social side, the economic side, but there's another layer here that appeals to the science nerd in me, the intellectual mandate. Because the sources talk about Dhikr as a way to avoid a kind of nature worship.
This is where the rationalist perspective really shines. We look at Surah Fussilat 41.37. It talks about the signs in the universe, the night, the day, the sun, and the moon.
And it says, don't prostrate to them, don't worship them.
Adore neither the sun nor the moon, but adore God who created them. Now, in a primitive setting, this means don't worship the sun god. Simple enough. But in a modern scientific context, this is a warning against worshiping the phenomena.
Worshipping the physics, but ignoring the physicist.
Exactly. The rationalist view is that Dhikr is the scientific observation that recognizes the design behind the physics. When you study gravity or biology or cosmology, you are observing Sunnat Allah, God's habits, God's laws, the way the system runs.
So doing science done with the right intention is Dhikr.
It's one of the highest forms of Dhikr. It is validating the signature on the masterpiece. But if you stop at the phenomena, if you just marvel at the sun and its fusion reactions, but forget the creator who established the laws of fusion, you have missed the point. You are worshiping the machine instead of the engineer.
And this ties into that state of constant consciousness mentioned in verse 3.191, remembering Allah standing, sitting, or lying down.
Again, not muttering words 204-7. That would be impractical and honestly dangerous if you're driving or performing surgery. This is a state of high alertness. It's an intellectual state where you're constantly filtering your reality through the lens of divine law.
A constant cognitive overlay.
You are constantly asking, what is the principle here? What is the law at play here? How does this action fit into the larger system?
The notes call it preventing ghafla, heedlessness.
Yes, ghafla is heedlessness. It's walking through life in zombie mode, reactive, just following trends, scrolling through social media without thinking. Dhikr is the antidote. It is conscious living.
And the verse says this leads to reflection.
It leads to tafakkur, deep reflection. The verse says they reflect on the creation of the heavens and the earth, and they reach a conclusion. They say, Our Lord, you have not created this in vain.
Not in vain, meaning there's a purpose, there's a point to all this.
There is a teleology, there is a reason for all this complexity and beauty. The universe wasn't an accident, so my life isn't an accident, so my actions matter. That chain of logic is Dhikr. It wakes you up from the meaningless slumber of materialism.
It's amazing how this connects everything. Science, sociology, economics. It's all encompassed in this idea of remembrance and striving. But if we have to strive and we have to remember, we need a reference point. We need a document. And this brings us to our final section, the ultimate manual.
The Quran itself.
Right. If Dhikr is a remembrance, what is the ultimate reminder?
The Quran describes itself as al-Dhikr in verse 15.9. Indeed, it is we who sent down the Dhikr. And here we have to lean hard into that technical manual analogy we started with.
Let's do it. Let's really break it down.
Most people treat the Quran like a book of spells. They recite it for blessings or to ward off bad luck without understanding a word of what it's saying. They keep it on the highest shelf, wrapped in cloth, but never open it to read the content.
It's the ultimate paracetamol chant. Chanting the manual instead of following the instructions.
Exactly like the paracetamol chant. But the rationalist view is that the Quran is the technical manual for human governance and ontological clarity.
Ontological clarity, that's a big phrase. Unpack that.
It means knowing what you are and why you are here. The manual reminds the human of their factory settings, their fikra. It reminds them of the laws of design. When you are confused about right and wrong, when society is screaming 1,000 different conflicting messages at you, that is noise.
And the manual cuts through the noise. It gives you the signal.
It acts as the safeguard. It resets you to the default settings of justice, mercy, and truth. It tells you, this is how the human machine was built to operate. If you operate it outside of these parameters, if you lie, if you cheat, if you oppress, the machine will break down. Society will break down.
So the highest form of Dhikr isn't memorizing the book phonetically.
It's understanding the instructions. It's deep study, tadabbur, connecting the dots between different verses and different fields of knowledge. And then, crucially, implementation. You read the manual to operate the machine.
Not just to admire the manual itself.
If you memorize the manual but you crash the car, you have failed. You don't get a reward for knowing the words. You get the reward for a well-functioning life, a well-functioning society.
That is actually quite convicting. It really strips away the places we like to hide. We like to hide in the ritual because the ritual is easy. The work is hard.
The ritual is safe. It makes us feel religious without demanding that we change. The work, the application, requires risk. It requires changing yourself. Remember 13.11. Changing your internal operating system. That is painful. It requires debugging your own character, your own society. But that is the only way the condition of a people changes.
So let's try to summarize this, because we've covered a lot of ground. We've gone from paracetamol to cosmic laws. Let's recap the new operational definitions we've built today.
Sure. Let's hit the key pillars. It's a good way to solidify it.
Okay, first one, dua.
Not a wish, but a strategy. It requires conscious planning, maximum effort, and aligning your actions with the law of cause and effect.
Second, dr.
Not a chant, but a state of operational mindfulness, systemic mindfulness that leads to immediate and constant ethical action.
Next, salat, in that social context we discussed.
The active implementation of divine commands in the public sphere, prioritizing the system of justice over private profit to ensure sustainable prosperity.
And finally, the goal of all of this, success.
The inevitable, natural consequence of following the design specifications of the universe. It's not luck. It's physics, spiritual and social physics.
It really changes how you wake up in the morning. It stops being about, I hope today goes well, and starts being about, how do I align with the system today to produce a good outcome?
Exactly. It empowers you. You aren't a beggar waiting for scraps from the divine table. You are an operator, a trustee, learning to use the most powerful tool in existence.
I think that's the perfect place to leave the analysis, but I want to leave our listener with a final thought to chew on. We've talked about the manual, we've talked about the work. So here is the challenge for you. If the Quran is a technical manual and dua is your work ethic, when was the last time you actually read the instructions before trying to operate the machine of your life? Are you just pushing buttons and hoping for the best, or are you following the protocol?
That's the question that matters.
Thank you for diving deep with us today.
It was a pleasure.
See you in the next deep dive.